So in today's video, we went from crying over frozen milk to turning 3 gallons of potentially discarded milk into nearly a gallon of whey, several bricks of cream cheese, ricotta, mozzarella, and cottage cheese. Stick around, see how. The other day, I had a little bit of an incident. We had a power outage and I had several gallons of milk set aside in a different refrigerator that I'm not getting in and out of all the time. And it froze. And what I have here on my farm is raw, unhomogenized milk. So that means the cream separates. If you've ever tried to freeze raw milk, you'll know that the preferred method is to separate the cream off the top or try to shake it up really good and somewhat get it homogenized before you freeze, because the cream can get, well, gritty. Today's video, I'm going to show you what do you do if you're in a situation like me where your milk accidentally gets frozen and you don't want to let it go to waste. Hi, my name's Angela. If you're new to the channel, welcome. So glad to have you here. And if you're a returning viewer, good to see you. I always love when we go on these adventures together. And today is definitely going to be one of those. So I had 6 jars, so that's 3 gallons of my whole fat raw cow's milk get frozen. And then I had another 4 jars that got kind of sloshy, you might say. So the sloshy one, I went ahead and after a day, shook it up, tried it, and we've been drinking on the sloshy milk with no issues. And to be honest, if you look inside of our the one that got frozen, it wasn't like rock hard frozen. It has thawed beautifully, but sometimes it'll get that grittiness to it that I really don't like. I did a little research and I found out that you can make cheese from it. Yes, you can. Preferably you want to make yourself a soft cheese or some sort of milk product, dairy product that you're going to be eating right away. It just doesn't work the same for making hard cheeses, something that has to sit a long time. The lipase and the structure of the fat globules have been affected once they've been frozen. So they won't make a long-term cheese. I'm going to be in the upstairs kitchen rather than downstairs where I normally make my cheese, because I thought today I would show you how you can make these kinds of things without a lot of fancy equipment with things that you have at home. Before you get started, make sure you obviously properly rinse and wash and sterilize all of your equipment, along with your hands, your counters, and everything. The 3 cheeses I am hoping to get made today's video is a cream cheese, cottage cheese, and mozzarella. Let's get started. The first thing I want to do is grab off some of the cream. Grab yourself a ladle or a small scoop and start pulling off that cream. And I'm going to inspect this cream as I do it just to see. But I think that the texture of this cream looks just like any other cream. I just wasn't comfortable putting this out in the farm stand for sale. So we get to experiment with it today. We've probably got half a cup to a cup in here. I'm saving this for our cottage cheese for later. Grab the insert for my Instant Pot because I am going to make kind of a Cheater's cream cheese, if you will, and I'm going to try to make it with mostly cream. My raw cow's milk comes with the cream line. So that means whatever the cow gives that day in cream comes with the milk. But after sitting a good 12 to 24 hours, that cream will separate. This is set for several days, so we should get a nice thick cream. I hope that you can see that cream line about right there. And I'm going to pull all that cream off on all 6 of these jars, and I'm going to stick them in the Instant Pot. Now, I'm not going to get perfect about it. I'll leave a little bit of cream in there. It's not a big deal if we leave some. But the thing about cream cheese, if you make it either the Cheater's way like we are today or the typical with rennet type of cheese, you're going to want more fat than not. That's what makes a delicious cream cheese. I mean, it is cheese from cream. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this in the camera, but the milk will change color and you can kind of start to see a line swirling around when I take that cream out. That's good enough for me because I don't mind leaving a little fat in with our other cheeses, but cottage cheese works really well if you use a skim milk. And you're probably wondering, can I do this with store-bought milk? Yep, absolutely. Just do not use the ultra pasteurized milk and you will be good to go. Now that I have separated all the cream off of all 6 of those jars, now what I want to do is go ahead and kind of fill these jars up with what was left, because I want to have at least a gallon. Grab myself a long spatula here because this cream, we don't want to waste any of it, and it will stick to the sides of your jars. And then the rest I'll just stick in with this cream. And now we should have a gallon for each. So now I'll just make the yogurt just like I have in the past. I will put a video for you. I'll try to remember down in the description box. I can put an iCard up here, and it'll be the one without the sweetener. So I'll get this started in the Instant Pot. I don't know that I've made this cottage cheese recipe before, and if I have, it's been a long time. So we're going to have fun with this together. Just going to pour this into my pot, turn on my heat. We're going to keep an eye on it. You'll need a thermometer for all of these things, whether you're making the yogurt or any of the cheeses. You're going to want a thermometer of some sort. I put the thermometer in my pot. I need to let this rise. It is currently close to about 80 degrees. I need to let it get all the way up to 120, 130, somewhere in there. We have reached 120, so I am going to shut off our stovetop cooker here. It's going to stay warm at this temperature. Take out our thermometer so you can read that. Put it aside. I'm going to need to have that handy yet today. And then to this, all we're going to do is take 3/4 of a cup of white distilled vinegar. It's going to start coagulating right away. I'm going to give this a stir. You can see it starting to separate. It kind of looks funky, but that has mixed in well. Okay, I'm going to stop at this point. This is separating your curds from the whey. I am now going to set this aside. And we're going to set a timer for 30 minutes, and we're just going to let it rest. Now, while that's resting, let's talk about one more thing we need. You're going to need a bowl, a colander, and then something to strain, to put on top of your strainer. You can readily get cheesecloth. You can find it just about anywhere. I like to use flour sack cloths. They're super easy to clean and to sanitize. All you have to do is once you wash them up and then have them in hot water, just like with the rest of your utensils. The timer went off and I have my bowl, my colander, and my flour sack cloth. It is wet because it's been cleaned. I'm trying to use utensils that you might have in your everyday kitchen, different than, downstairs when I'm typically making cheeses, I use a lot of stainless steel. Today I'm not using all that stuff. I just want to show you that this whey is really, really yellow. We might even be able to grab up our cheese curds. Oop. We can. You know what? Our mozzarella recipe is very similar to this, and it honestly looks more like mozzarella to me than cottage cheese. We shall see. I'm going to strain off the whey. Just want to make sure that my bowl doesn't get too full. Every once in a while, I've got this jar. I save back one of those, and we will put some of our whey in that. Whoop. Oh. Now this whey is an acidic whey, just like what would be off of our yogurt. Acidic whey can be used in baking and all sorts of things. So do not throw that away. Away your whey. Do not throw away the whey. I've gotten to the point where the whey is white. So I don't want to squeeze any of that out because there are going to be proteins yet to be gathered. So I'm just going to cover this so that we don't get any dust particles or anything like that in it. And we're going to set it aside, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes. Now I'm going to wash everything up so I can bring you back so we can get started on our third cheese recipe. You know, I've been doing this for probably close to a decade now, and I never remember which ones I have and haven't tried. I don't think I've done the 2-ingredient mozzarella. I'm not sure, but that's what we're going to do today because, like I said, I'm trying to make it simple ingredients that most everybody would have ingredients and tools on hand. So we're going to basically do the same thing that we did for the cottage cheese. We're going to take, although I do now wish that I would have saved some fat with this. I'm going to go ahead and put this cream that we saved back in with our mozzarella. I just think we'll enjoy the cheese a bit more, and I feel like the structure of the cream is fine. And when we go to make the cottage cheese, I've still got that whole milk that we can use if our curds get too dry. We just poured our gallon of skimmed off milk. I ended up putting a half a cup of cream back in there because I just decided that the mozzarella needed just a little bit more fat because I don't think that the globules were affected. We're going to get this up to 115 instead of the 120 degrees. It's been close to our 10 minutes. Oh, we've got our milk heating up. It is almost 115, so I'm going to go ahead and drain off this milky whey. Next, what I want to do is we're going to kind of gather it up and we're going to squeeze out as much of the whey as we can. Now, some people will go as far as rinsing it. I'm not going to go to those extremes today. It's a cheese that we need to use within a week anyway. So I'm going to plop it into the bowl. I'm going to get all these pieces off because these are our curds. We don't want to lose any of that. Scrape all this off. We have reached our 115, almost 120 over on our other gallon of milk. Shut this off. It's going to be the same thing. It was 115 instead of 120, and it's a half a cup of vinegar instead of 3/4. It should start to coagulate, and it certainly is. I've stirred it plenty. And this one you only need to let set for maybe 5-10 minutes. You can see it's already really starting to separate. We're just going to take this and we're going to take a fork and we're just going to separate these curds the best we can. And sometimes it's best just to get in there with your fingers, and you could make big curds and little curds, however you like to eat it. You know, at the store you can get different size curds. Into our glass bowl, I'm going to start breaking up some of these curds. This isn't going to be, you know, your professional store-bought cottage cheese. It's going to be different. It's probably going to be a little bit chewy because I can feel that these curds stuck together like a mozzarella would do. We have been using cottage cheese in a lot of baking recipes, especially like egg bites and pizza crust and things like that. So I can see us totally using this for that if it doesn't quite hit our desires for just eating cottage cheese. To me, this seems perfect. It's this piece that I'm not as impressed with. And sometimes I tend to be a little impatient, so that could have been part of it too. To this, we're going to add some salt, maybe half a teaspoon up to a teaspoon, just to flavor, okay? Mix this in, fluff it up one more time. And I personally do not like a dry cottage cheese. And that is why I had saved back the half cup of cream, which we ended up putting into the mozzarella. So I've got this whole milk, and I'm going to put, maybe up to a half a cup or so of that in there. Because I don't like a really dry curd. And I know as this sets in the fridge, it will get drier. It'll soak that up. So see, it already did. There's hardly any loose milk in there. Here's a nice chunk. It actually tasted more like cottage cheese. I'm going to put this in the fridge, and then we're going to wipe up, clean up, and then we'll get to our mozzarella. Cheese and the whey looks very much the same. I'm going to take these curds. A lot of them will have clumped together. I think because it got so cloudy and I can't see what's going on, I'm going to take this cheese, I'm going to move it to the side, and then I'm going to start pouring in some of the whey to make sure that I get all, see, there was a chunk. Gonna have to strain that one more time. This time, I will put a strainer on it and try to catch those little bits. Get this to all kind of clump together again. Slowly strain the rest of this in there. I'm going to put this back in the pot on the stovetop to stay warm, because that's the trick with the mozzarella. You've got to keep it warm. There was a suggestion with frozen milk like this to go ahead and add calcium chloride, which is what you would do with store-bought milk a lot of times when you make especially a hard cheese. But you can see this is what happened. It just kind of dissolved. You can put on gloves if you want. I tend to have kind of strong hands. I have a friend who lovingly says that I have man hands because I bend chicken wire with my bare hands and stuff like that. But so the heat doesn't bother me as bad. I'm just going to put all this in here. And then now I'm going to start squeezing and pulling. And we're going to pull out the whey. If it gets too cold, we can put it in the microwave. I had the hardest time with this. It is not like kneading bread. 30 seconds in the microwave. Here we go. I'm just going to keep twisting and stretching. Now remember, you're going to get a better yield than I am, because that was another warning of if the milk was frozen first, is that you wouldn't get the yield. So I anticipated this. I think I'm pretty happy with this. If I wanted to, I could put this in the microwave another 30 seconds. I think I'm happy with it. Look at that mozzarella. 30-minute mozzarella. How cool is that? And just for a few minutes, we've got a bowl of ice water, and we're going to submerge our mozzarella in there. That is going to pull out any whey. It'll help it stay fresher, but again, you'll want to use it within a week's time. Take our mozzarella out. It has formed We formed a solid ball. I'm going to kind of pat it dry just a little bit. I'm going to put some salt on top since we didn't salt it. Put a lid on it. Put it in the fridge until we decide we want a snack or maybe some homemade pizza. We basically have 2 gallons of our 3 with whey. 1 is a very, 1/2 gallon is what I expected. A very yellow clear whey. But 3 of them are that milky whey. Many times when I make mozzarella in a different way, I will take this, which I'm going to do today. I'm going to take my gallon, almost full gallon of the leftover whey, and I'm going to try to make some ricotta with it. So what we do is while it's still warm, we're going to pour this back into our pot. And then I'm going to go ahead and take this that still has a little bit of color from the other batch. I'm going to add it in there too. And I want to get this hot, like really hot. We're talking 180 to 200 degrees. We have reached about 130 degrees. We can see the curds and whey are separating again, like they did when we did it at 115 and 120. We're just going to sit here for a minute. Do you hear that? Pop, pop, pop. You worry that something bad's going to happen, but we're getting very close. We're about 150 degrees. This is when it's really starting to do some stuff. It gets so hot that everything really separates. You want the stuff that comes to the top, not the stuff that settles to the bottom when you make ricotta. Starting to see a change, and we're starting to see yellowish green color that we were looking for earlier. This is the proteins separating. Hope that explains that just a little bit. Now, it is controversial that you want to continuously stir at this point. Personally, I don't. Now, some recipes will tell you to do that, but I find I get a sweeter ricotta if I just let it be, leave it alone, and only stir it when I add in the vinegar that very last time. 1/2 cup of vinegar. Shut this off. When I move it down into the milk a little further, it clearly shows we have reached that 200 and we're starting to bubble and boil, and I don't want that. So here we go with our vinegar all at once and stir it up really good. And then now we're just going to let it sit for a good maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes. The trick here is you just kind of start with the edges and you just start pushing everything together. And you want to try to kind of make one lump mass. Okay. Trying my best not to disturb underneath. And just grab these chunks, and I'm putting them in a bowl that has a colander, and we're gonna get a lot. I am so glad I chose to do this, because I just had that feeling from having the experience of having made cheese before. Felt like too much of the protein had gotten left behind. And that very well could be because the milk had gotten frozen. But now, instead of 3 products, we will have 4. Strain for several hours. I'm gonna go ahead and dump that whey out just so I have plenty of room. So I'm gonna let this strain for several hours. I'm gonna go do chores. I'll come back to it this evening. Back from chores. Okay, what we're gonna do is, you can see that we have a bit more of the whey that has come off of our ricotta. And all I need to do is salt it to taste, probably another 1/2 teaspoon or so. And I'll just mix this up. And honestly, it looks a lot like cottage cheese, more like the cottage cheese that we made, because it did get kind of dry. Let's give it a taste. It's good, but it is definitely way too dry. Whey, too dry to be cottage cheese. And the temperature that it was cooked at, But honestly, the texture, the look of it, I think a person could use this as a cottage cheese. It almost acts like it. My ricotta usually isn't this dry, but I did let a lot of that whey drain off for quite a while. A person could almost press this and get like a paneer or a farmer's cheese out of this. I don't know. I may use it with some of my recipes that I would use cottage cheese in. It's almost too sweet to be cottage cheese. But look at all of that we got with whey that might have been thrown away. Now all I have left to do is the cream cheese, and it's only about halfway there, and I'm getting tired, so I'm probably going to call it a night, put on my pajamas. All I'm going to do is let it process. Then I'm going to put it in my yogurt strainer overnight, and then tomorrow I'll be back. It is the next day, but we are not where I thought I would be with the cream cheese situation. I, before bed last night, checked on it, and it was still liquid. I was quite disappointed in that. So I thought, what can I do? Is this because it was all cream? Is this because the cream had been frozen? What's the situation? So my instinct told me, go ahead, grab the rest of the yogurt that I had in the tub. I don't even have a measurement. It was a lot. It was quite a bit, at least a half a cup or more. And so what I did is, let me show you. I went ahead and let it go another 12 hours. It has solidified some, not a lot. I'm kind of disappointed. I almost thought about making butter from it, and we still may, but I think for now, I went ahead and I've got my yogurt strainer and the press, which we've not gotten to use that. That would be perfect for this, but not yet. I'm going to gently, see, they're kind of a solid, but it's a very runny yogurt. So I've got to be really careful transferring this over, as much as I would really like to just dump it all in there. We learned our lesson with that yesterday. As I get towards the bottom, that some of it is more of a mass, but honestly, I don't know what we're going to end up with. At this point, it's still very much an experiment. It's been, I don't know, 30 hours maybe, and I wanted to show you. Okay, it's a little more cloudy than it was. It was sitting in the fridge. I wish I would have gotten a snapshot for you, but I had to move it around to get it over here to the countertop. But we have a much thicker substance now. I just keep moving it around. So I'm going to pull this out and show you. It is much thicker. It is still kind of in a liquidish form. So I'm just going to move this over for a second. I'm not going to waste this whey. I don't know if this hold all this or not, but we'll at least fill up this jar. I'm going to get this in the fridge. That could be used in all sorts of recipes. I'm real excited because we're finally going to get to use the press that came with my yogurt strainer. All we do is put in our press. We've got our spring, which will fit right on top of it. It just kind of sits there. This should put pressure onto our yogurt. Typically, I wouldn't have waited this long, but it was more liquid than my typical yogurt is, so I didn't want to press it too soon. I'll probably leave this in the refrigerator again for maybe even another couple of days. Okay, we're back. It's probably been another 30 hours, and we are going to finish the last step in making this mock cream cheese. Yogurt that has strained with the press on it. And you can see we got a lot more of that whey out of there. Woo! The spring jumped up at me. And that was fun. First thing I think I'll do is I'll turn this lid over, and I'm going to put our yogurt on that lid as just my base. And then all this beautiful whey I'm going to put into our half-gallon jar. And that little bit that we got a while back, I'll go ahead and I'll save it and put it in with this jar. Ooh, this is the first time I've used this, so we'll see how this comes out. I did have a very small amount in the lid. Oh, wow. Wow. Look how thick this is. All right, good thing I've got all my instruments and everything ready. I've got clean containers. I've got clean hands. I'll set this back in here for there's just a little bit left. I'm going to turn this over and I'm just going to taste it like this just to see what it's like. This is very close to cream cheese. I don't think I'm going to do anything to this. Nothing at all. I was contemplating whether or not I wanted to salt this to kind of help preserve it. I honestly don't know that it really needs to have that done to it. Okay, I think to keep it longer in the fridge, salting may help it. Honestly, flavor-wise, I don't think it needs it. So I personally am not going to salt it today. It's perfectly spreadable cream cheese now. I don't know that I can go back to store-bought cream cheese now. I have struggled with making cream cheese. I think I finally found a solution. So I was watching Mary's Nest. I don't know if you guys are familiar with her channel. I'll try to remember a link. And she suggested taking some cheesecloth or something and sticking it in your container before you go to store it. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. This is going to be equivalent to about 1 block of cream cheese. So I'm going to do that one first. And I have it double folded. So this is going to get really nice and thick. Look at this. I'm just really, really impressed with this. I'm going to plop some of this down in there. I'm just going to spread as much of that in there as I can, as even as I can. I think I've hit my limit here. We're just going to fold this over on top of our cream cheese, kind of flattening that out. With a little convincing, I was able to get this in there. So it's got double wrapped, which may or may not be a good idea, but we'll see. And I'm going to do this on my second container now. There we go. So there should be approximately 8 ounces in these blocks. It's not going to be perfect like at the store. And then I have these bigger ones that are going to hold about 1.5 the amount, and it will only have 1 layer of our cloth. Yeah, you can see I tucked it in real nice here. And this has one of those snap top lids, and it goes up a little bit so that the cloth can fit in there. I think that was this is going to be a better solution. Just for funsies, I have this that I know is equivalent to a block of cream cheese. We'll put what's left in there. It's an exciting day on the farm, and I'm so glad that you were here with me to experience this. Friends, I think this is where we will end the video for today. I want to say thank you for being here with me today, and thank you for being along this great journey with me. If you want to see what I do with all these lovely cheese creations, stick around. Ring that notification bell so that you see when I make the next video. Bye for now, friends. Until next time.